We're on Chav Beis and Beis. Okay. Shmuel had said that you're able to acquire a slave through Meshicha, right? By pulling the slave. However, he differentiated that if you pull the slave and the slave comes along, that's Meshicha. What about if you summon the slave? You call the slave to come, and he comes towards you, then you don't acquire him. It's not considered valid Meshicha. So we left off. The Gemara asked the question, how could you say that if you summon him and he comes as a result of your summoning, it's not considered Meshicha regarding an animal? We learned regarding an animal that if you pull the animal, if you hit an animal with a stick, and as a result of your hitting, it walks its full length, or whatever Meshicha is, it's considered Meshicha. What about if you summon the animal to come, and the animal comes, it's considered Meshicha? So why in regard to the animal was it considered Meshicha, although you didn't physically pull the animal, but you caused it to go its length? So here, the reason why the slave came to you is because you summoned the slave to come to you. So why do we differentiate between the animal and the human being? That was the Gemara's question. Where is it? Gemara says, right? Ravasi, V'abri or Ravach Omer. Amri said more answers. Behema daita demor oslo. When you summon an animal to come, why is the animal coming? Because the person summoned it. It's not the animal made a decision to come. Right? It's not the animal. The animal, it's like I gave the example. If you put a pin into a person, he says, ouch. Did he have a choice to say ouch? It's a reaction. It's a reaction to pain. It's not a conscious decision to say ouch or not ouch, right? However, so that's the animal. You summon it, so why is the animal? It's a natural response to your summoning. When you tell a person to come, it's not a natural response. The person decides to come or not to come. So it's the person's initiative which causes the coming. Meshicha means it's as a result of your act, you take possession. Your action or the coming is fully attributed to you. That's Meshicha. If it's not fully attributed to you, it's a combination of the person and myself. That's not Meshicha.
So a person wants to acquire an animal, you could call it and make it...
That's the case we have. You call it and
that's good enough.
That's good enough.
It was calling. Was that equal calling? Is equal calling?
That's called Meshicha. Now, we had a Gemara we once discussed. We never learned the Gemara here this year. The Gemara says we rule that lav shein b'masa ein lo kenolov. What? With screaming, right? So, what's the halacha that if you have an animal threshing and you muzzle the animal when it threshes, you're in violation of a lav. It says lo sas v'shor b'disho. You're not permitted to muzzle an ox when it's threshing. What if it's threshing? You didn't muzzle it. And as it's about to put its head into the food, you scream and you startle it. And you don't allow it to eat. And every time it wants to eat, you scream, you startle it, doesn't eat. You're definitely in violation, but you're subject to malchus. That's called lav shein yesh bo masa. What do you mean? But we say that words are not a key, right? We say words are not an action. Action means you need a physical action. If you have a wagon and you have two species hitched up to the wagon, a horse and a cow, and you scream, and as a result of that, the horse and the cow, they pull the wagon. You're in violation of what? If you're working with two species of animals, and the person is subject to malchus. This is the Gemara above Metzia. So Tosas asks, but we rule lav shein b'masa ein lo kenolov. So why is he subject? So he says that if as a result of your dibur, of your speech or your voice, an action, it results in an action, immediate action, that's considered you've done the action. It's a direct outgrowth of your action. You've done that action. Okay?
So Dibur is considered a master.
When there's a immediate consequence, immediate, of course. Aiden testified. Right, said it's lav shein bo maaseh.
Right, why?
Because it's not immediate.
What do you mean?
You find the man guilty. I said the man is committed murder.
Right.
I'm found to be conspiring. So what's my testimony? My testimony brought a verdict.
Yeah.
What he dies or doesn't die, that is unrelated. We're talking about, there's no immediacy here. Why did the animal immediately walk? Because I screamed,
Yeah.
right? It stopped eating. So my screaming is the equivalent of muzzling the animal. I muzzled the animal. I prevented it from eating. No, but I'm just showing that similar to that. That's what I'm saying. Here, it's not attributed to me. He had to make a decision to come. So his coming is, he decided. Now that he's decided, he comes. But it's not my voice. My summoning is not what is with an animal. My voice is causing the animal to come.
That's the master.
That's my meiser.
That's why it's like
That's what I'm saying. It's like the two species pulling the wagon. I summon the animal walks towards me.
I don't think of human beings where that is the case.
Well,
Certainly in the military.
Well, we'll see in a moment. We'll see in a moment. What about if it's a small child?
No,
The
no,
slave
I'm
is...
talking about in the military. You know, the way the chain of command works, if somebody screams at somebody and gives them an order, it's almost immediate that that person's going to do that.
But the person says, I better come or else... Right.
Then the person's not even thinking, it's been ingrained in them.
But still.
Like the Marines.
It's the
you know,
mind works.
you just don't
No.
ask
I
questions,
understand that. But it's ingrained in it. But it's part of the subconscious, because there's going to be a consequence. If I don't, therefore, right? The mind is trained, but it has relevance to the thought process. An animal, there's no thought process. Okay. We already discussed Sukkah and Makis and Bava Basra and Bava Metzia. Okay.
You're like a firing squad. The officer who is fired is like David himself.
No. Exactly what we're saying now. No. Well, why do they pull the trigger? Because each person's mind, if it would be a voice-activated system, your voice activated that the trigger should fire. Then you're a murderer. You clap your hands and the light goes on Shabbos, right? Okay, you put the lights on. Or let's say you scream and the light goes on. That you put the lights on. Here, each person will pull the trigger. It was his decision. When he gets the order, he pulls the trigger. That's a daiti nafshikovid.
But he's an instrument of the officer. But if the officer...
He's not an instrument. He's not an instrument of the officer. You know, Yimach Shemam Hitler, all the Nazis, we followed orders. That's what they said. It's irrelevant you follow orders, but it's still your decision. That's called a daiti nafshikovid. He's fully culpable for what he did. But not to the same degree. Not to the same degree. There's liability. I mean, we rule al-locha. We rule ein shlich d'var aveira. Okay, well,
Hitler is less culpable than
no.
Hitler
He's
did
no.
the job. Because he didn't do it himself. That's what we have to say.
I always said, Eichmann, before they caught him, if you would meet Eichmann, were you permitted to kill him? Were you permitted to kill him? Right? No. Why? If the person's in the act of pursuing a person to kill him, that's rodef. Right? You're permitted, you're obligated to kill him. Right? To save the life of the pursued. But what Eichmann did during World War II, that's post facto. That's after fact. Right? The court wants a judgment as an individual to kill him. Are you permitted? So seemingly not. But then, the answer is yes. Why? Because in terms of what he represented in the Nazi movement, he was the insider of anything they do, it's him. So he's the Rodef. What he represents killing Jews. So as long as he's alive, all the Rodfim, all the pursuers in the world who pursue Jews, anti-Semitism, he's the cause of that. So he's the Rodef. So as a result of that, I'm just saying, that was Hitler. He inspired a movement of demonic behavior, genocide, so he's considered the Rodef.
You say that he put a test on, make a test that if you killed him, would you save lives and not save? The direct effect of killing Hitler would have been to save a whole bunch of lives.
I'm not... No. Okay, let's get back to the Gemara here. So the Gemara says, Eved adaited nafshi kosi. An Eved, he has a mind of his own. So when you summon him and he comes, it's as a result of him deciding to come. So that's not Mashiach. That's interesting. The Gemara says that if you have a non-Jew writing a get, even though he's proficient in all the laws, it's not a valid get. Why? Because the get has to be written lishma, has to be written with a specific intent. So what about if you have somebody instructing him? Right? So we say that the person is adait nafshi kovid. He has a mind of his own. The Gemara uses the same language. Right? That a goy adait nafshi kovid. He has a mind of his own. Even though you tell him, he does what he wants to do. But you're telling him, adait nafshi kovid. It's the exact same words. But over there it means something totally different. There, he doesn't pay attention. Even when you instruct him to have in mind Reuven and Leah and so on and so forth for the get, he has his own ideas of what it's all about. Wait a second. Not valid. What happened to Yudavnu Minyan, where one of the people was a goy, and then he converted the next day with Yossi Meir the night before? He was a goy. That's where you're on Wednesday, right? Where were you on Wednesday? Okay. That's for sure. Okay. What? Ka'ovid. He has done.
And here it's with Ka'azir.
He's going, because here it's going. He's coming. Because here we're talking about coming and going. You summon him and he's coming towards you. It was his decision to come.
Ka'ovid is to do.
Over there it's writing the get. The Ovid. He has done. He has done. Here it's going. Right? But it's a different context there. Omer Avashi, Eved Koton, Kibehim Adomi. An Eved Koton, a child who's a slave, you want to acquire him and you call him, that's like the animal. Because it's similar. It's not a decision.
It's a lesser degree, it's less maturity to...
No, what's Koton? We're talking a 2-year-old. We're not talking about a child who understands, it's...
When can you sell it?
What? Who said that? It's not...
Explaining it.
Disagree. No. Disagree. No.
This would apply to any man.
No. Evet Kotten is difficult. It's difficult.
Very difficult.
No, I don't agree with him. I don't agree with him.
This would apply to any man.
No, not anymore. No. According to what we're saying, you have a 12-year-old child. A day short of his bar mitzvah. He doesn't have a mind of his own? When you summon him to come, why is he coming? Because he decided to come. He could have chosen not to come.
It doesn't apply this.
Evet Kotten, I meant a very small child. A small...
But when can you sell a child into slavery? At what age?
No, it's Evet Kanani.
Okay, so when can you...
Evet Kanani. What about transfer? One master wants to purchase the other person's Evet Kanani. And he wants to purchase it with Mashiach. Right? So he calls the child to come. So is it valid or not? So we say a small child, an Evet Kotten means minor. So we're saying he's the equivalent of the animal, summoning the animal. So, but I'm saying if the reason why we differentiate the human being is because it's his decision process, so a 12-year-old child, he doesn't have a mind of his own? Also. So I understood Evet Kotten meant a very small, like a 2-year-old, where it's all purely reflexive. You call, he comes. The mind, it's not part of the intellectual process is coming.
So a katan is still an 9-year-old.
No, so I'm saying anything up to the point where it's not an intelligent or a mental decision, then we treat the child like an animal.
A katan is a 10-year-old.
I understand. So I'm just saying here, not. That's not what it means. I don't know.
I mean, katan.
It's difficult. It's difficult. Then we have a problem.
Katan by definition.
I understand the difficulty. But I'm just telling you why I learned what I learned. Because how do we differentiate between that and the animal? There's a difference. There is a big difference.
When we say katan, is that a concept only applied to a Jew? That this is for a male, it's just under 13 years, and for a woman, a female, it's just under 12 years. That's what we usually say.
Correct. Normally this.
So when we refer to a boy, katan, what does that mean?
Good question. So the Rishonim say that a person who's less than 7 years old, see there it means in regard to appreciate the difference between right and wrong. Liability is based upon knowing the difference between right and wrong. At what age is a child sufficiently mature to know the difference between right and wrong? Anything less than 7 years old is a cotton by a non-Jew. An adult, full adult. So if that 7-year-old marries a woman, right? It's a marriage on a Torah level, right? It's his wife. 7 years old. It's an evaluation of appreciation, knowing the difference between right and wrong.
So, Rabbi, we're saying in a way that the boy gains maturity sooner than
No.
7 versus 13.
No. Deciding to be together. Right, so I say, you're my wife,
Yes.
so good.
So he's not a man in terms of
Puberty.
not in terms of procreation. I think that's
See, I'm not sure, maybe, it's not simple. See, my only question is, what happens if a 7-year-old child rapes a Jewish woman? Is she considered a zona? Because for a Jew, he has to be 9 years old. So that I'm not sure. Could be that's halacha mishkasina by a Jew. I'm not sure by a non-Jew what would be. That's what. But let's say he'd be 9 years old, right? A 9-year-old child marries a woman, so the act is considered an act of cohabitation, right? Even though we can't procreate, it doesn't make a difference. But it's an act. It's called an act of procreation. Definitely be a marriage.
This Evet that we're talking about, this Evet katan, is this a Canaan, this is maybe a child of a Canaanite slave?
Yes.
Now,
Or a person bought a woman, and she had a child. Now he owns an Evet Kanani.
he owns the Evet Canaan, a minor.
Right, now he wants to sell that slave to another master.
What is the halachic status of this child? We said that an Evet
A
Canani...
quasi-Jew,
No, an Evet Canani is like a Jewish female.
correct? Regarding his mitzvahs.
Right.
Okay.
So he's a Jew, he's circumcised, etc. And
Right.
he's, now this katan, what are his obligations?
Like a,
He has to be circumcised.
correct?
He has to be circumcised, but he doesn't yet have the mitzvah of a woman.
It's a katan.
He's a cut.
Why would he have any mitzvah?
He's like a
Jewish,
minor.
he had mitzvahs.
Any slave.
And there's
should have
no
mitzvahs.
obligation on the master to train him in the mitzvah, like we said, chinuch.
Chinuch is only on parents. A parent has to train a child.
So this one here can behave like a goy.
He's not. If he does, I mean, the Beis Din will rein in on him. As a child, as a child.
As a
child. Let's say a Jewish child who has no parents. He can behave like a goy. The halacha is if you see a Jewish child eating not kosher, it's not your child, you have no obligation to intervene whatsoever. You see a Jewish kid eating a hot dog at one of these Sabbath stands, right? Hot dog things. Not a problem. You don't have to say a word to the child.
So when do the obligations of a woman come upon the slave?
When he becomes an adult,
When is that? Is that 12 or 13?
Not sure. Not sure. Not sure.
It might be 12.
Maybe 12. No, because the Rambam, there's a question, I once mentioned, it's Machlokes Rambam and Tosfos. There's a halacha of Pasakonim, you're not permitted to destroy the corners of your face with a blade. So an Eved Kanani, if he would shave with a razor, is he in violation of the law? Rambam says yes. Why? Oh, so it says because the only reason why a woman is not, of course, in terms of the genetic makeup of a woman, she doesn't have, even if a woman has a beard, it's an abnormality. So therefore, because the genetic makeup of a woman's not supposed to have, so therefore it has no relevance. But the genetic makeup of a male slave, he's a man. So it's not because you chayv mitzvahs keisha, but the only reason why is the woman exempt. She's only exempt because it has no relevance to her. But if it would have relevance, so she would be obligated. So here we have, it's normal for him to have a beard. Therefore, the provision applies. Okay, that's the rub. Tosfos says no. Whatever applies to woman applies to him. Woman has no relevance to it. He's not liable. That's an argument. Okay. Tanu Rabbanon. Gemara, because it says, she's not even in violation. She cuts off the sideburns. Of course, Torah juxtaposes cutting off the sideburns to shaving, to destroying the corner of one's face. So just as the face has no relevance to woman, cutting off the corners of the head have no relevance to the woman. Tanu Rabbanon. Ketzad b'chazoka. How does one acquire a slave with chazoka? What's chazoka? Demonstrating ownership. Right? That's what we said, let's say a piece of property. Demonstrating ownership. Hitalo binolo, he removed the shoe. It's interesting. Only one shoe. He doesn't have to take off both shoes. One shoe is enough. He undoes the shoe. For the master. Oh, holich kelav achros b'samerchotz. He took his, whatever he needs, to the bathhouse. He's his valet. Hifshito. He undresses his master. Hirchitzo, he washes the master. Socho, he anoints him. Gordo, he brushes him. He brushes his body. Now, while he washes him, Hilbisho, he dresses him. Hinilo, he puts the shoes on. Higbio, he carries the master. Carries the master. Kono, because these are all. This behavior is how a master deals with a slave. These actions are the actions of a slave to a master. That's demonstrating ownership.
Just lifting up like this, lifting up for purpose.
Usually we say that
To help him in the bed or something like that. Then it would be fine. But then he just lifts him up like this when he's not.
Wait, you mean why is he lifting him?
Yeah, that could be for a reason. No, it's just lifting him himself. He's watching and
No, let's say he doesn't want to walk. You stand on your feet, there's pressure. Well, he says, lift me up.
Okay, yeah, but not for a reason. But it has to
Why
be
does anybody lift anybody?
Sometimes somebody joke around with something, lift them up or something. It's not a reason. Here there's
No,
reason.
let's say the message says, I want you to lift me at this moment.
Okay, that's the reason. That's
So
fine.
even though it looks like somebody's joking around with someone, it doesn't make a difference.
No, but he's saying
Because
that-
who lifts anybody? You know, it's interesting. Mishicha, we say, you have a mind of your own. So if you summon an adult and he comes, it's not. Just make it simple. Because that's his own decision to come. You tell the slave, lift me. So he chose to lift you. Right? It's a valid kinyan. The answer is once Mashiach, that we're trying to explain what is Mashiach, what's Chazoka. Chazoka is demonstrating ownership. How is the ownership demonstrated? As a result of you being treated like the master and the other individual being treated like the slave. Right? That's the meaning of Chazoka. Mashiach means you take. That means it's solely attributed to you, not to anybody else. So if the person has to make the decision to come, so the Mashiach is not fully attributed to you. It's your taking. It has to be fully your taking. Right?
Well, one is his beard, and his brother lifts it and carries it and everything else. You don't assume it's not a chazaka that the brother is a slave.
No, again.
The person is a slave in the first place. Then how is he?
What about anybody does a kindness to somebody else? Carries a comrade on the battlefront. What? He's a slave? No, we're saying it's only, but it is. If a person has no reason to do that, and he does it, why is he doing it? The answer is because he's demonstrating his ownership over him. Right? That's what we're talking about.
How do we know that the person to accomplish chazaka, the person who's trying to create the ownership, the change in status, has to do the action himself?
Doesn't
You're
it?
saying that the slave
He doesn't have to
has
do it.
the action.
Correct.
Which
Now, why is the slave do it? But why should this person take his shoes off?
I understand, but going the next step and saying that accomplishes chazaka is a surprise.
Okay. Reb Shimon, 1 second. Reb Shimon will say chazaka dolim hagbo. Chazaka should not be better than hagbo. Shagbo kono b'chol mokom. What about if you lift something? Let's say the master lifts the slave. And we're saying here the slave lifts the master. The master is demonstrating ownership over the slave. What about if the master would lift the slave? He says definitely it should be a valid kinyan. It's not chazak, but it's hagbo. By lifting an item. And hagbo applies to many other things. So if it applies to other things, it shouldn't apply to the slave. Chazok, he said, "Te chazok gedolim hagbo, shagbo kono b'chol mokom." My komar. What are we speaking about? Omer Avashi higbihu l'rabo. Mean the Tanakama. What about if he lifts his master kono? Higbi rabo lo kono. But if the master lifts the slave, the master doesn't acquire the slave. Even though one's lifting, but because each one is it's a different concept. Correct? When you lift an object normally, what am I doing? I'm taking it to my domain. Right? So he says, the Tanakama says, that's regarding an unintelligible object or an inanimate object. With a human being, hagbo is not sufficient. Because you don't. What about a person who has enormous strength and he's able to lift a 500-pound bull? We're going to see later it's not a valid because people don't acquire bulls by lifting them. Right? You pull the animal and it comes as a result of you pulling it.
People don't acquire people by that.
You don't, an object you lift. I'm taking it to my domain. Maybe we differentiate over there between a small sheep and a large animal. Maybe yes. No, has no chaynos esatzmo. Nothing. What's chaynos esatzmo? Tosas asked the question in Shabbos. You hold a 500-pound, 100-pound something you carry it on Shabbos. You're in violation of transporting an inanimate object. You carry a 200-pound person. Minimally, it's equivalent of a 100-pound inanimate object. Are you in violation of carrying? No. Why? Chaynos esatzmo. It seems to be a lot heavier than the 100-pound object. So what's chaynos esatzmo? Right? That's Tosaf's question. Okay? So you see, it's not so simple. So it has relevance to Shabbos, has no relevance to this over here. No, because it's not the manner in which you normally acquire. You don't acquire human beings by lifting them. Right? When the slave lifts the master, because the master, that's demonstration of mastership over a human being. Demonstrating mastership over a human being means slave-master relationship.
When the Kohanim lifted the people, what was that?
No, just the other way. They lifted the Kohanim, the Levium. They waved.
The waving.
The other way.
What was that?
Right, that was something else. It wasn't the kid. No, that was waving. Had to do with tnufa. Like you wave a meal offering. You lift it.
They lifted them up. We were talking about
Lifted it and waved.
Lifted and waved. What is that? Lifting. What was that about?
That's to initiate them that the Levium should take the position of the Bechorim.
So So
Yeah, the
Kohanim
firstborn.
lifted the
Not, no. Moshe and Aaron
Moshe and Aaron
lifted the 22,000 Levium.
22,000. It was an enormous accomplishment, physical accomplishment.
Impossible accomplishment. It was a miracle.
But what status did that affect?
That caused them to assume the status of the Bechorim, of the firstborn. The firstborn were invalidated. They couldn't officiate.
Right.
So that right had to be transferred to the Levium. So that was the initiation process to transfer the status of being officiant to becoming a non-officiant. It was there. No, I mean this was prescribed by Hashem. That's the way the transfer took place. It's not like the Bechorah,
So
one-time thing. That was it.
It was never ever a lifting process.
No. Okay, let's get back over here. Okay. So Reb Shimon said, "Lo stei chazok adol me'ad bosh. I bo kono b'chol mok hashlo mad amri tegbiu hu l'rabo kono." So what's the whole idea? When the slave exerts himself on behalf of the master, that's an act of servitude holding the weight of the master. So the Gemara asks an interesting question. Elamiato shivcha kanan stikna bebia. When a man has relations with a woman, he's on top of the woman, so she's holding him, so she's supporting his weight. So if that's the case, that should be chazokah. If a master goes and cohabits with his Canaanite slave, even though it's a prohibition, right? It's a lav, it's nisno raisa, it doesn't make a difference. But factually, it should be an act of acquisition because he's demonstrating his mastership over the slave woman. Okay? David's reading the commentary on this one. Okay. On that, the Gemara says, Kia kamina zenev zemitzayer, hocha zenev zenenehu. You understand? Why is, when the slave lifts a master, why is that a demonstration of mastership over a slave? Because the slave is exerting himself. It's work. But when a woman cohabits, even though he's on top of her and she's supporting his weight, but she's participating in the act as he's participating. They're both involved in a pleasurable act. Therefore, that it doesn't in any way display the behavior of a slave to a master, because there's no exertion. Somebody asks a question. What about Shloka Darka Michael Meimer? What about he does an unnatural act with the woman? Well, she doesn't have the pleasure. He has the pleasure, but she doesn't have the pleasure. So again, and he's on top of her. So if that's the case, maybe there should be chazokah. Would that be considered chazokah?
Somebody being tired.
No, we're saying because she's having pleasure. If he's having pleasure, that detracts from the demonstration of mastership over a slave. Because the slave has to be in a position of being pained by serving the master. Right? You serve the master. That is, I take off the shoe. It's not pain, but it's still it's a diminishment of the person. Right? What am I? Your lackey? Am I your slave? Take off your shoes to wash you in the bathhouse. So there's a diminishment. So over here, what about Shtul Kedarka? For the sake of his pleasure, she's being pained. She's not. She's holding him. She's supporting his weight, and she's not having pleasure. He's having pleasure. I'm not saying she's necessarily being pained, but she's being used as an object, and she's not having the benefit that he's having. Omer Achai Barado de Minacho Man Leimlo the Lav Hano Islu Letarbayu. It may not be the same degree of pleasure as a natural act, but she also has a degree of some pleasure. So because it has relevance to that, it's not an act of servitude to a master. Okay? So that's firstly. That's the first answer. The Torah says if a man has relations with any of the ancestral relationships or commits adultery, shlokadarka, it's considered adultery. How do we know? Because it says in regard to a homosexual act, it says mishkavei isha. It's the equivalent mishkavei, meaning it's a mishkavisha. What's in the plural? The cohabitations with a woman. So from there, it alludes that man could cohabit with a woman one of two ways: naturally and unnaturally. Even the unnatural act is the equivalent of a natural act. So if a man commits adultery with a woman, doing an unnatural act has the full liability of adultery. for life. Doesn't make. But what's the life? Doesn't make a difference. No, so you have to understand. You have to understand. You have to understand. We'll leave this for tomorrow.